getting a divorce is one thing, but divorcing a narcissist is a whole other huge hurdle, because when you're dealing with a narcissist, you become public enemy number one, because you're now facing a person who is seeing you as somebody that they have to take down, and they want to take you down before they can, before you can take them down. They're worried that you're going to expose them, and you're taking away their source of supply. And so even if they say, oh, we want to do this collaboratively, we want to make sure that this is amicable, you don't want to necessarily believe them. I have a book out. It's a USA Today National Bestseller. It's called Slay the Bully: How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win. You're definitely going to want to check that out. You can get that at slaythebully.com. I also have free phrases for disarming narcissists, which you can check out at disarmthenarc.com as well. There's just a whole unique blend here of dealing with hurdles, both legally and emotionally, when you're dealing with a narcissist. So the first thing that you're going to want to make sure that you do is have a stash of cash, for sure, of your own. So whether it's getting some other resources to help you from family members or friends or some other support system, or if you can start maybe pulling it together yourself in some kind of stealthy way, that would be a good thing. You're really going to want to make sure that you have, at least a few months worth of your own stash of cash, because you're going to need enough to live on, and enough to be able to hire an attorney, and enough to, get yourself to a place until you can get to a hearing on temporary support, if you are the person who's not the moneyed spouse. So yes, probably in your state, you will be able to get some sort of temporary support. I highly recommend that you talk to your attorney, but the laws in most states do provide that you can get some sort of temporary support if you've not been typically the moneyed spouse. But it does take time to get that hearing and also get an order in place for that. So you will need some kind of stash of cash of your own. The other thing is, you're going to want to figure out where it is that you want to live. And are you going to continue to live in the same house? Are you not? What are you going to want to do when that divorce is filed? Because there's going to be that period of time between when the divorce is filed and when the divorce is final. So there's that time that the divorce is actually pending, and you're going to want to figure out what you're doing during that period of time. And I definitely don't recommend that you leave your house until you know what you're doing. You don't give up your rights to your home if you own your home. If you own your home, you still have your ownership rights in your home, but you may not be able to get back into it if you want to have some sort of, rights to be able to have it exclusively. So they call that exclusive rights of use, or something like that. And so if you want to file some kind of motion to have exclusive use of that home, it's harder to get exclusive use back once you've already left. It's not saying it's impossible. It's just a little bit more of an uphill battle. The other thing is, if you have children, you want to make sure that you have a written agreement in place with regard to time sharing with regard to your children before you leave your home too. And I would make sure that it is really super specific, because if it is kind of up in the air, it really, especially when you're dealing with a narcissist, can wreak havoc for you if you're now in two different homes and you have no agreement with regard to the children. It can be massively disastrous. So you really want to make sure that before you're in separate homes, you have a pretty specific agreement. Most courts do recommend that there is an immediate, some sort of mediation or dispute resolution, something with regard to children right away. But right away in a court system could mean months. So definitely have some sort of written agreement in place. I talk about this both in my SLAY program and in my book, that depending on the type of narcissist that you're dealing with, whether it's covert, grandiose, malignant, they are going to act differently in the court system. The covert narcissist is going to be more likely to line up their flying monkeys and smear everybody sort of on the down low, make it look like they're all sweet and good and the good one. The grandiose narcissist is going to be the one that's going to be more likely to be much more aggressive out of the gate, file all those false pleadings, be the one to ignore the court orders, ignore the pleadings, ignore the request for discovery, that sort of thing. The covert narcissist is going to be the one that wants to look all nice for the judge, that sort of thing. So if you are dealing with a grandiose narcissist, you might want to just go ahead and do subpoenas instead of trying to do requests for discovery, because they're going to be the one that, they're not going to give you all the discovery right away. So it's good to know what kind of narcissist you're dealing with. I do talk about that more in my SLAY program. Just start with the disarm the narc phrases. That would probably be a good place to start. If you are needing more support, now we get into the emotional aspect of things. You are definitely going to need that too. Line up a good support system for yourself. Some good friends, some good family members, trusted people, not people who are going to be, running back to the other side, trying to play both sides of the fence. You cannot have that when you're dealing with a narcissist, because that narcissist is going to play them like a fiddle and try to use them, to be their flying monkeys. You really can't have that. So you're going to want somebody who you can trust to be on your side. And if you don't have that, have a Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. You can certainly join that. You will need therapy of some sort. If you don't have access to therapy, we have a sponsor on this channel, BetterHelp. You can go to betterhelp.com/Rebecca Zung and find a therapist. We receive commissions on that. It doesn't cost you any extra. We just want you to have access to resources that have been vetted and that you can trust. So you will need a support system, therapists, friends, support groups. Do some things that will make you better, that give you joy, breathing exercises, writing out your I am statements, joining support groups, that sort of thing. Starting to set boundaries. Step 1, don't run. Step 2, make a U-turn. Step 3, break free. That first boundary is going to be knowing that you are able to be respected, knowing that it's okay to look at them as if they're a toddler having a tantrum on the floor, and just saying things like, I can see that you're upset. I can see that you're angry. We can continue this conversation when you're ready to be calm. Limiting that direct contact, that direct communication is going to be really, really helpful. One form of communication, something that you can document. Documentation is really, really going to be important too. Making sure you're keeping track of everything, emails, journaling, bank statements, all of those things, your credit card statements, your photographs, witnesses, social media, all of those things are examples of documentation that you're going to want to start organizing. So setting boundaries, limiting direct communication, especially with their flying monkeys, is going to be really, really important. Starting to educate yourself through videos like this are going to be really important. Educating yourself around narcissism is really important. Just making sure that you are preparing yourself properly. I would say it's like strength training, So you're preparing yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally for this, and keeping yourself healthy. So making sure you're eating healthily, getting enough sleep, and you know, doing everything that you need to take good care of yourself, because it's being in any sort of a divorce is one thing. I mean, I always say there's this massive divorce paradox, because during the worst, most stressful time of your life, you have to make the most critical decisions of your life about all of the things that mean the most to you, your children and your money and your business and your home and all of that. But you layer on that you're divorcing a narcissist. It's one of the most crazy disempowering things. But you can do this, and you can turn this around. I've literally helped thousands of people through my slay program, and it absolutely works. And you can do this, and you can navigate this process and come out stronger on the other side. They only win if you give in. Got it? They only win if you give in. And remember that they are way more afraid of you than you are of them. 100% that is true. Just know that they are extremely difficult to deal with, but they're extremely simple to understand. And with the right framework, with the right understanding of how their psyche works, you absolutely can win every single time.
So, you know the old expression, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail? Well, that is magnified by like a million when you're dealing with a narcissist in divorce. I've seen it many, many times. I've represented them thousands of times. I've been on the other side of them. I've seen them as opposing counsel. And I've actually had to deal with a couple of pesky, awful, horrible narcissists in my own life. And so I know exactly how the mind of a narcissist works and what the psyche of a narcissist is like in the middle of a divorce. So here are a couple of the tricks that they play in divorce. Twisting everything you do or say. So every time you send them a text or an email, or you just speak to them in person, or you communicate with them in any way, or even if they hear about something that you've said, they're going to twist it. They're going to take the parts that they like. They're going to cut off other parts. They're certainly not above cutting and pasting parts of texts or emails to make it look like you said something or didn't say something. They'll do whatever they can to make you look bad and them look good. Because remember, with narcissists, they have no sense of inner value. All of their value comes from the external. They need an endless amount of what we call narcissistic supply, which is where they are boosting up their ego. And supply can come in the form of good things, such as a big house, or what I call positive things, a great job, being friends with the right people, things like that. Or it can come in the form of what I call negative things, which is causing you to feel devalued, debased, degraded, making you squirm, manipulating you. They get supply from that as well. And so that's what you see happening in a divorce, because remember, for a narcissist, you have no value. Your value when you're in a relationship with them is just what you can do for them, and what kind of value you can give to their endless need for supply. So once you've shown yourself to not want to be in a relationship with them anymore, even if they are actually in the process of doing the discard, then you have no value left for them anymore. So now you're the enemy, because when you're dealing with a narcissist, you can't just nicely walk your own direction and shake hands and just say, well, let's just let the law dictate what's fair, and we'll just sign something and be on our way and wish each other well. It doesn't work that way with narcissists. With narcissists, you're either for them or you're against them. So that's why they're going to twist everything that you do or say. The next thing that narcissists do in divorce is obstruction. So it's crazy, because there'll be laws in every state and everywhere that you have to provide certain types of financial documents to each other, and it's mandatory, it's required. and they won't provide what's mandatory. They won't provide what's required, or they might only pick and choose what they want to provide. So, if they're supposed to provide 12 months of credit card statements, you'll just see them provide 10 months worth, but suddenly July is missing or September is missing, and then you have to try to go back and try to get it. And all of this is just very frustrating. And a lot of times my clients will end up saying to me, how is he getting away with this? How is she getting away with this? Well, something that I remind people all the time is that there are no like divorce fairies that just pop out in the middle of people's living rooms and go, hey, you're not allowed to do that. Or, hey, you're supposed to provide that document. How come you're not doing it? So they're going to get away with it until they can't get away with it anymore. And what happens is they will no longer get away with it when somebody brings it in front of the judge. Because remember, the only person who has any power to order somebody to do something is a judge. No one else, or the police, if you call the police because they've done something criminal. But when you're talking about civil actions, you can just push everything through the judge. So you end up filing a lot of motions, and motions to compel and motions to enforce and things like that, so that they produce the documents that they're supposed to produce. So that's number two trick that they play is obstruction. Another thing that you'll see narcissists do is ignoring court orders. And that's kind of what I was just talking about with ignoring laws, but they also ignore court orders. And it's just so mind boggling sometimes because, what I've seen people do sometimes is early on, they'll come up with a parenting plan, or maybe you come up with an agreement that's signed that becomes a court order that says you're not supposed to introduce new significant others to the children. And, lo and behold, there they are introducing their new girlfriends or new boyfriends to the children. And that's a violation of now a court order. And so you have to file a motion to get it enforced, or ask the court to issue a show cause order as to why they shouldn't be held in contempt for violating that court order. But the thing with narcissists is narcissists are street fighters. They will fight dirty, and they'll do as much as they possibly can that they think that they can get away with. There's really no bar that's too low, or no thing that's too far, as long as they're pretty sure that they can get away with it. Or even if they're so sometimes arrogant about it, or so distorted in their thinking that they think that they'll get away with things, even if they don't necessarily end up getting away with things. Another thing you see narcissists do is constantly move the goalposts when you're talking about agreements. And what I mean by this is, and listen to me when I tell you this, do not send letters back and forth between your lawyers trying to settle the case. You'll never settle the case with a narcissist that way. And it ends up just being a waste of your time and money. Because what happens is they'll send over a proposal, and even if you agree to 100% of everything they send over, by the time you send over your agreement, they've already changed what the deal is. They'll say, okay, well, yeah, you still have to live up to everything that you just agreed that you're going to give the other person, but now they want more, and they're going to give you less of whatever it was that they were supposed to do. And it just constantly changes, constantly changes, constantly changes, because they get supply out of making you squirm. So while you, as the reasonable person, think that you're working toward a goal of resolving the case, silly, their goal is to manipulate you and make you squirm as much as possible. So you actually don't even have the same goals there. So one of the things you will see them do is constantly move that goalpost, constantly change back and forth. And another thing I will tell you is, do not use a collaborative process. Don't use a collaborative attorney. It's a waste of time when it comes to dealing with narcissists and divorce. And also, don't mediate too early. You're going to need leverage before you go to mediation. And another thing that narcissists do as far as tricks in divorce is they start triangulating, smear campaigns, getting all their flying monkeys lined up, the people that they're turning against you, so that you feel like the world is against you and everybody's believing their lies. So that's another thing that they do. And one other thing that they do is intimidation tactics, scare tactics, try to make you think that you're going to lose your kids, or you're going to have no money or be out on the street, or that they're going to take everything from you. They're going to use the court system as their sword. They'll use the children as pawns, things like that. I mean, as I said, there's really no bar that's too low. They'll do whatever they can to scare the crap out of you. And if you're dealing with a narcissist in divorce right now and you've already seen them do these things, give me a totally in the comments right now. Okay, so here's what to do to be prepared. Document, document, document. I cannot say it enough. In your documentation, you will end up finding your leverage, I promise. Leverage isn't necessarily always this smoking gun. It is usually made up of many different things, such as lots and lots of text messages, or figuring out when they didn't show up for the kids and how often and what are the percentages, and building a strategy around what kinds of leverage you have. So that's all actually part of my SLAY program, for those of you who are familiar with my program, which is Slay Your Negotiation with a Narcissist. And SLAY actually stands for having a super strong strategy, having invincible leverage, anticipate what the narcissist is going to do and be 2 steps ahead of them, and focusing on you and your case. And so you've got to have this SLAY method together. But the first part of getting that method together is definitely documenting every single thing. You can just have the notes part of your phone open, just assuming that you've changed your passwords and all of that, and just keeping track of absolutely everything. The next thing you can do, I just alluded to, is change your passwords on everything, including all your cloud devices. Anywhere you have a login, make sure you change those passwords. The next thing that you can do to be prepared if you haven't filed for divorce yet is have a stash of cash available, especially if you are the non-moneyed spouse. If it's possible for you to have at least 3 months worth of cash until you can get to a temporary relief hearing. And nowadays, right, the courts are a little bit crazy and they're super backed up. So, who knows when you'll even be able to get a hearing. So you want to have at least a few months worth of living expenses, both to live on and also to be able to hire a lawyer. So the next thing you're going to want to do is figure out a plan. Where are you going to be living? Are you going to stay in the house? Is the other person going to stay in the house? Or are you going to stay there together? If you're going to move out, where are you going to go? How are your expenses going to be paid? If you decide to move out, make sure that you're thinking about a parenting plan if you have children. You want to think about all these things ahead of time. One of my clients who actually left a narcissistic husband too early said that she ended up having to go back. And then he punished her and made it worse. And it was so much worse for the next couple of years. So the next time she left him, she got all her ducks in a row and she knew exactly how she was going to execute it down to the letter. She actually even packed the suitcase and walked out the door while he was sleeping in the middle of the night. And she knew exactly what hotel she was going to. She had directed us exactly what time and where to serve him. She knew she was going to be away for at least 2 weeks after he was served. Then she went and stayed with her mother. She had it all planned out ahead of time. And by the way, she had hired me ahead of time. So that's something else that you should be thinking about, is hiring a lawyer and getting the right lawyer, somebody who understands narcissism, who's going to be on your side, you're going to feel like you have a rapport with, and who's going to go on the offensive for you, because the nicey nice method when you're dealing with a narcissist doesn't fly. They just see it as weakness and use it as an opportunity to make things worse for you.
Have you ever met somebody, they started off to be the most charming, charismatic person you've ever met in your life, then they turned out to be your worst nightmare, and then when you go to negotiate with them, they're a living hell? Well, I developed something called the SLAY method of negotiating with narcissists, and it has helped tens of thousands of people in more than 150 countries win, go from feeling drained and defeated to getting the outcomes they want. And the reason why it works is because I spent more than 20 years studying narcissism as a trial attorney, and now I'm here to help you win too, and also take your suffering and turn it into your superpower. Take your pain and turn it into profit, peace, and purpose as a highly specialized, high conflict negotiation coach. If you want to learn how to do it, then just go to RebeccaZung.com/apply, and I will show you how.
Now, let's talk about how to prepare yourself financially for a divorce. If you are getting ready to go through a divorce, it's different to prepare financially if you are what we call the moneyed spouse or the non-moneyed spouse. The moneyed spouse is usually the one who is making more money, and very oftentimes the moneyed spouse is the one who has more control over the finances. Sometimes it's not necessarily that way. Sometimes you see the person making the money and then the other person who hasn't been making as much is the one who has been paying the bills and in control of the finances. But a lot of times what you see is the moneyed spouse also usually has control over the actual money. So if you are the non-moneyed spouse or the person who doesn't have control over the finances, it's really even more important for you to prepare yourself financially for divorce. And if you are getting ready to divorce a narcissist or anybody, make sure you check out my video on before you divorce a narcissist. Watch this because that will give you tons more information. If you are getting ready to divorce a narcissist or anybody, and you're in it to win it, give me a "in it to win it" in the comments. Regardless of who you are, whether you're the moneyed spouse or the non-moneyed spouse, the very first thing you're going to want to do is gather your financial documents. So when you go to file for divorce, and once the divorce is filed, regardless of where you are, you will have to disclose information about your finances. So generally, that means a couple of years of tax returns, several months of bank statements, credit card statements, savings accounts and checking accounts for both personal and business. It also means credit card statements for both personal and business, and it usually means any kind of prenuptial agreements, deeds for real estate, retirement account statements, pay stubs, the way that you've been paid, whether it's maybe it's a 1099 or maybe it's a W-2 or maybe it's a K-1, but you will need to be able to have access to all of that information or actually copies of all of that information. Your lawyer will need that. And for how long will you need it for? I mean, at least several months worth of financial statements for banks and credit cards, probably at least a couple of years of income information for your tax returns, and then at least a couple of months of statements for current pay stubs, things of that nature. So that's number one, is gathering your financial information. Sometimes if you're the non-money spouse, it can be kind of hard to get access to that. Don't beat yourself up over it. If you can't get access to it, then it will have to be disclosed anyway once the case gets started, but it's a little bit easier for your lawyer if you've already got that information, because now that avoids having to send out requests to produce, and then if the other person doesn't produce the documents, then your lawyer now has to file some kind of motion to compel the information to be disclosed to you. So I would just say the more you can get your hands on, the better it is. I actually had a client one time who would just get little bits and pieces, and she would just drop it off at my office, and she did that for like 2 years before we actually even started the divorce. But that's what she did. And so gathering your financial information is going to be really, really important. Number two is going to be understanding your lifestyle and tracking your expenses. So if there's going to be any kind of a claim with regard to alimony or support or maybe even child support or something like that, lifestyle and monthly expenses may end up being an issue. So it's really good if you have a really good understanding of how much you've been spending monthly on anything, including mortgage, taxes, insurance, electricity, utilities, cell phones, but also dining out, insurances, pet expenses, grooming, gifts for people, any kind of children's expenses, tuition, lunches, anything that you're spending for the children. extracurricular activities, things like that. So make sure you have a really good understanding, if you can, of what the lifestyle has been, because that will also help you as well. Sometimes people need to hire forensic accountants for lifestyle analysis, and if you've already done the work, it will save you lots and lots of money. Number 3 is having access to cash, because especially if you are the non-moneyed spouse, yes, your lawyer can potentially file something for you to get some sort of support for you on a temporary basis and going forward. And yes, maybe your spouse will continue to deposit their paycheck into the joint account or let you have access to credit cards and things like that. But they may not. They may cut off your access to that. And yes, your lawyer can file something that orders the court, where the judge will order the narcissist or whoever the other person is to continue to pay for those things for you and can you continue to give you access to those things. But in the meantime, while they've cut you off, your lawyer has to file the motion, get the hearing time, get in front of the judge, get the judge to give a ruling, and all that time you're trying to live. And how are you going to? So if you can, ideally, it would be better if you have at least a few months worth of cash that you have access to, that you have sole control over, and also enough to hire a lawyer if possible. If you don't have a way to save it up for yourself, maybe you can call upon family members or friends to get a loan for you, so that until your lawyer can go and get that money back from the spouse, from a court hearing, that you take it out in loans. And obviously there's no guarantee that you can get it back, but that is something that you will want to talk to your attorney about. But in the meantime, if you can get access to having enough cash to get you going for a few months, and also hire an attorney, that would be the ideal situation. The last thing is just prepare yourself and your documents in making sure that your any trust documents or wills or anything like that state what you want them to say, because once you get going with the divorce, you may or may not be allowed to change beneficiaries or change what is in your trust documents or your wills or things like that, or beneficiaries on IRAs, because sometimes, depending on the jurisdiction that you're in, there may be a standing order issued that gets issued. It's an order of the court that gets issued as soon as the divorce is filed, which precludes people from making big changes. So, it will preclude you from also putting the house on the market or doing anything like that unless you agree to putting it on the market or making these big changes. So if there are changes that you want to make, you should probably talk to your lawyer, but those are the kinds of things that you're going to want to do prior to the divorce being filed.
So I wanted to actually take you through those 5 stages, the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross stages of grief, and how they actually play out during a divorce, especially during a divorce with a narcissist, during the 5 stages of a divorce with a narcissist in particular. Okay, so what do the 5 stages of a divorce with a narcissist look like? Number 1 is denial. So when you are dealing with a divorce from a narcissist, you are dealing with denial. First of all, you deal with the fear, that fear of what's going to happen, that catastrophe of what's going to happen. Because when you are dealing with a divorce from a narcissist, you know what's coming. You know that down the pike, they're going to turn against you. You know you're going to become public enemy number 1. You know that potentially going to expose you and try to turn the world against you and all of those things, right? And so you know that potentially emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of those things, it's going to be pure hell. and what's going to happen to you, what's going to happen to your children, what's going to happen to you financially, and you're imagining all the worst possible things. And so maybe you are in denial at the beginning about all of it because you just don't even want to think about it. So you kind of deny that this is where your relationship is. You think maybe it's not so bad, or maybe I can live with this, or maybe it's not so bad all the time, or maybe this person can change. So you're kind of in denial about the relationship being as bad as you think that it is, right? So that's probably the first stage of divorce. And then the second stage is that anger, where you think, why are you like this? And why do you have to be so horrible? And why couldn't you just change? And why did you have to mess things up? Why did you have to cheat? And could you have stripped so much of my life away? And why did I waste my life on you? And you're just so angry at this person for maybe messing up your children's lives, just everything. Maybe you're resentful about the fact that they didn't make more money, or that they wasted money on things at this stage where you just maybe feel entitled. Maybe you just feel like they need to pay for everything that they've done to you. And I'm telling you, a lot of people, they get stuck in this stage for a very long time. A lot of people never get out of this stage. I think a lot of times people feel like if they forgive, or if they move on, or if they get out of this stage, like somehow the narcissist got away with it in some way. Like if they let it go, then they got away with it somehow. And that's just not the case. I mean, you need to move on for you. This is not about them. This is about you not living with the venom, not living with the poison, not living with that toxicity within you. That's number two. This is that anger stage that people live in for a very long time. And let me tell you, there's a big difference between wanting what's equitable and what's allowed under the law, and wanting to apply the law and being fine with that, allowing that to happen, and not allowing guilt to be part of that, not allowing being afraid to be part of that, not allowing emotion to be part of that, just allowing the law to be applied without anything else to be part of that. Okay, so that's the second part. That's anger. The next one is bargaining. And bargaining is where you might go back into, well, this is where it can be sort of dangerous, because this is where your narcissist, especially when you're divorcing a narcissist, your narcissist might start getting nice again. They might start hoovering. And so you might start getting weak again too. You might start going, well, maybe this might work out, or maybe it's not going to be so bad, or maybe we might be able to be friends, or maybe we might be able to somehow, some way, either get back together, or maybe we can be amicable, or maybe I can get them to see my value, or maybe if I just give in on certain points, they'll start to give in for me. And this is a trap I see people often fall into, especially in negotiating with narcissists. Sometimes people think, well, if I give a lot on the front end, they'll see how great I'm being, and they'll also give in. That definitely is never the case, by the way, ever. They just take, and then it just goes into the ether, and they'll be like, yeah, and your point is what? That never helps you in any way, by the way. And they don't acknowledge you. They don't see your value. I mean, that doesn't help you. And so that you go through this bargaining stage, and a lot of times that whole honeymoon phase is often met with rejection. You try to get them to see your side or whatever. and it doesn't work out. And then it ends up feeling worse, and you end up feeling even worse than you did before. It's almost like you've been rejected again. And so it ends up where you feel even more lonely or more sad or something like that. The one thing I do want to say is I have a couple of videos. One is on self-care when you're coping with a narcissist. I would definitely check that out. The other one is I have a video on self-care when coping with a narcissist. That's an interview that I did with Amy Newmark, who's the president of the Chicken Soup for the Soul entities. And she had done a book on it, on self-care. And I would definitely highly recommend that interview as well. Great, great stuff. Check out both of those videos on taking care of yourself and making sure that you are doing what you need to take care of yourself. And I want you to put that in the comments right now, that I take care of myself. Put that in the comments right now. I take care of myself. Just to remind yourself that you do that, and you will do that throughout this process, because it is so hard sometimes to remember to do that, especially during this difficult time. So after you've gone through denial, anger, and bargaining, now you go into depression. And this is one of the hardest ones, because you've gone through denial, anger, and bargaining. In some ways, they're like easier, even though they're difficult to go through. They're easier than the depression, because the depression is the lowest point, honestly. This is where the divorce is probably over and you just are feeling lonely, you're feeling sad, you're probably beating yourself up. There's a lot of the Monday morning quarterbacking of, did I waste my life? Did the person ever love me? Did I give up too much in the divorce? I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have signed that. Maybe I had a terrible lawyer. That other person had a better lawyer than I did. I spent too much money on the divorce. I gave up too much time sharing. There's always this whole thing about, I should have left 10 years earlier. I never should have married the person. There's all this regret and la, 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 la stuff going on. Don't go down that rabbit hole. You cannot do anything about the past. It's not going to give you any sense of satisfaction. It's not going to go anywhere but down. That level of vibration is horrible for you. And don't even go being around people who are going to serve that kind of conversation, because it's not going to help you. If they're saying, oh, I saw your ex and they're with this other person and they're off having this great life, that's not going to help you either. What's going to help you is you starting to create your new life, starting to create new memories and all that sort of thing. Because that first year, where it's a year of firsts, where it's different, it's the first holiday where it's something different each time, or you used to always do Sunday brunches and now you don't anymore, or whatever. And you're just having to create your own, maybe new set of friends or whatever. It's difficult. And so starting to create your own new life, your own new future, where you feel whole and complete on your own, is going to be absolutely critical. Developing your own set of interests, your own set of friends, join a book club or join a runner's club, or start something where you're cultivating your own life, where you start to feel whole and complete. Join a meditation group or something like that, where you start to do things for your own peace of mind, where you start to feel whole and complete on your own. That will do wonders for you. Really making sure that you have your own support system in place is going to be absolutely critical. And then the next level, that's going to lead into the acceptance. You'll know you're into that acceptance phase when you can see your ex and not feel any emotion about it other than, oh, there's my ex. Hello, goodbye, whatever. I don't feel anything around you other than there's my ex. And you've now pursued your own life. You now have your own life, and your ex has his or her own new life, and everybody has gone their own ways, and it's all fine, well, and good. And you need to create that space for yourself. Those are the 5 stages of divorce with a narcissist. And that's the most important thing. When you can get through that, when you can get to that level of acceptance, that is where you know that you have moved on, that you've gone all the way through, that you have moved through all 5 stages, and you have become who you really are supposed to be. You know, your soul knows that you were born for more. Your soul knows that you were meant for more. It seems like every celebrity has access to GLP-1s these days, but what about the rest of us? Now you don't need to be rich or famous to access personalized, tailored weight loss solutions just for you. Through Hers, you can take control of your health. Hers is changing women's healthcare by providing access to holistic weight loss solutions, including GLP-1 treatments with the same active ingredients as Ozempic and Wegovy, oral medication kits, and more. You'll connect with a medical provider who will develop a plan based on your needs. And if prescribed, your medication is included as part of a doctor-designed weight loss program, complete with ongoing care, online support, all at no additional cost. Plans start at just $199 a month with a 12-month subscription, paid up front, and your treatment ships directly to your door. So if you've been struggling with weight loss and you want to find the right solution just for you, start your free online visit today at forhers.com/negotiate. That's forhers.com/negotiate for your personalized weight loss treatment options. Hers is not available everywhere. Compounded programs are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required, restrictions apply. Wegovy and Ozempic are not compounded. You're getting ready to divorce a narcissist. Maybe you're in the process of divorcing a narcissist, and you're scared to death that the narcissist is going to use the court system as a sword. Or what does that even mean, that they use the court system as a sword? When they go to divorce, they are now in what we call the discard phase. And if you want to know about the 3 different phases of a narcissistic relationship, which is love bomb, devalue, and discard, check out my videos on love bombing, devaluing, and discarding. But once you get into the discard phase, it's really the birth of the smear campaign. They can start this process months and months and months before the divorce it has even been filed. You know, they just start dropping these little breadcrumbs around to their flying monkeys or to the other people that they want to line up to be on their side, because they're just starting to plant these little seeds that there's something wrong with you. So, for example, they'll say, you know, Mary had a little too much to drink at the party, and they say that like 6 months before the divorce was even filed, because they're kind of starting to see the writing on the wall. And so they just start to say these little things like, oh, I'm kind of worried about her. You know, they put it in this terms of, oh, I'm so worried about that person. And then, boom, once the divorce starts, they are now suddenly asking for sole custody or supervised time sharing, or they want a custody evaluation, something like that. And it's like the craziest thing. You know, so I have a situation like that right now with one of my clients. My client is the husband, and the two of them are in the same exact profession, and they even own the business together. They have 3 children together. They have shared custody. I mean, you know, even when they were still married, they shared responsibilities. Both of them were taking the children to various sports events. Both of them were making dinner for the children. Both of them were helping with homework. Both of them were equally involved in the children's lives. So I crazily thought, oh, we'll start this case and it'll be no problem. Since they're in the same profession, we're just going to be drafting a marital settlement agreement. I'm sure it'll just be 50-50 custody. There won't be any alimony issues. But no, she goes and hires a lawyer that likes to help people use the court system as a sword and weaponize the court system. And suddenly the woman, the wife, filed a motion for a custody evaluation, and now all of a sudden she's withholding time sharing from my client. All of a sudden, when the case starts, he's a terrible parent. He beats the children. He does all of these things. Meanwhile, right up until the day that she filed the petition, they were sharing all the responsibilities for the child. But now here she is using the court system as her sword, weaponizing the court system to gain leverage over my client, to show that she's the one in control, to show that she's the one with the power, to show that she's the one that can make him squirm. Because remember, narcissists need an endless amount of supply. Supply is their food source, their oxygen, it's what they live on. So they get supply from jerking people around. It sounds like the craziest thing. When you're going to try to resolve a case, a divorce case, or any kind of issue, any kind of dispute with a narcissist, and you are a reasonable person, you are not on the same page, because that narcissist is not looking for an ending of the situation. The narcissist is looking for a way to continue to jerk you around. So while you're going, well, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why are we throwing all this money at this situation? Well, the reason why is because they are enjoying the process. They'll tell you that they aren't. They'll tell you it's your fault that it's taking so long. They'll tell you that you are the reason that they had to do all these things, because they had to save their children by asking for sole custody, or save their children for asking for supervised time sharing. But that's not what they really want to do. What they really want to do is jerk you around. I've actually had clients where they were the ones who were the narcissists tell me, I'd rather pay you than her. I'd rather keep the lawyer working and doing things to make the other person miserable than to actually resolve the case. Sounds crazy, but it's not crazy when you know what the motivation is behind it. And if you don't want this to happen to you, I want to see an I'm fighting back in the comments. If you are dealing with this and you're seeing this narcissist using the court system as a sword, or you think that they're going to be using the court system as a sword, there's only one way to get back at this, and that is to shift the dynamic, turn the tables, because you're going to feel like you're being pelleted with ammunition all over the place. They're going to use every single thing they can in their arsenal to make your life as miserable as possible. So you're just going to be sitting there defending. It's like you're trying to get yourself out of a paper bag. So the only thing you can do is use my SLAY method, which of course I have a whole course on slay your negotiation with a narcissist, but understand that SLAY stands for strategy, leverage, anticipating what the narcissist is going to do, and focusing on you and your case. And that's the only way you're going to do it, and you need to go on the offensive. And maybe even use the court system as your own sword, but in a way that ethically manipulates the manipulator, in a way that makes them think that you are potentially going to be interrupting their source of supply, so that they feel threatened, because the only way that you're going to get them to stop using the court system as their weapon, as their sword to make you crazy and use it as a form of getting supply for themselves, is by fighting back, is by going on the offensive, is by threatening their source of supply, by saying, okay, potentially you're going to look bad if you do this, that, or the other thing. Creating leverage against them. Inside my course, I give like 30 different examples of leverage because that's like so important. I also have a whole video on it. So if you haven't checked that out, make sure you check out my video on how to create leverage and what is leverage when you're dealing with a narcissist. And we'll drop a link to that below as well. The main thing that you need to remember is they will use the court system as their sword, as a weapon, as a means to make you crazy. Just expect it. Don't be surprised when they do that. But you need to have a plan of attack, a plan to fight back, a plan that has you controlling the process instead of them. All right, so let's talk about the 11 sneaky things that narcissists do in divorce. So first of all, before we get to that, you need to understand something about narcissists, and that is that with a narcissist, you're either for them or against them. And if they find out that you're against them, once you're into that discard phase, then you become public enemy number one. And now they need to take you down. And the other thing that you need to understand is that they get narcissistic supply from jerking you around. So while you might think, what is it that they want? I'll just give it to them. What they want is to jerk you around. They get supply from that. And so when you just say, I'll just give it to them, what you're basically saying is, I, I want this over. And if you're trying to make it be over, then you're trying to say, I'm going to take away a source of supply from them, which they don't want to happen. Get it? So that's why that option of just giving them whatever it is that they want and walking away is really an illusion. It's a trick because they will constantly move goalposts and do all sorts of things because they get supply from jerking you around and intimidating you and making the process a nightmare for you. So that's why you have to kind of approach it from a different angle, and that's what I teach you in my SLAY methodology, which stands for strategy and leverage and anticipating and focusing on you. So remember, they're difficult people anyway. They thrive on conflict anyway, even in regular life. And so when you're dealing with it in a divorce situation, you are now dealing with whoever they were on a regular basis, but on steroids. They're like 50,000 times worse. So they want to take you down before you can take them down. They want to expose you and make you look bad before you can make them look bad. It becomes this massive, huge game to them. All right. So, what kinds of things do they do? Well, I mean, it ain't good. Let's just say that. But let's go through a few of their favorites. Number one is they will lie. They're going to lie about anything. They're going to lie about everything. They're going to lie about stuff they don't even need to lie about. They're going to lie about stuff that's readily verifiable. You will be saying to yourself, how are they getting away with this? And the thing that I want you to remember is that the only person that can hold them accountable is the judge, no one else. There's no, magical fairies that come out or stormtroopers that come out in your living room that go, hey, you're not supposed to do that. So, when you say, how are they getting away with this? You have to remember, okay, well, who can hold this person accountable? Only the judge. And how do you get the judge to hold this person accountable? Well, you do that through filing a motion and setting it for hearing or something like that. So the only other way other than that you can get them to do something that you want them to do is through actually creating leverage and letting them feel threatened, letting them feel like they're going to be exposed in some way in the negotiation process. But anyway, I'm digressing. Anyway, here we are. So they will lie. They're going to lie. They're going to lie in motions. They're going to lie in pleadings. They're going to lie in depositions. They're going to lie to the court. They're going to lie to the lawyers. They're going to lie to mediators. They're going to lie about everything. Don't be surprised when they lie. Just like, go, yeah, there they are lying, and then use it to your advantage. You can use it to your advantage. When they go and lie like that, you're going to go, yay, thank you. Thank you very much, because that will become part of your leverage. Got it? All right. And by the way, If you know that they are big, fat, hairy liars, give me a total liars in the comments right now. All right. Ready for number two? Number two is they will obstruct. They will withhold information. They will not give you the financial documents that they're supposed to, or they'll give you some of them, or they'll give you all the months except July. It's so annoying, but that's what they will do. I know it's crazy, but you know, they just do that just to annoy you or to withhold information or to try to hide information, or they want to make you work for it and they want it to cost you more money. So that's number two. Number three is they will manipulate text messages, emails. I've seen people, where the narcissist will send a confirmation email for an agreement that, you know, obviously didn't take place. So annoying, right? They will twist everything you do or say. All right. And I want you to remember that everything you put your hand to is a potential trial exhibit. So if you don't want to see it again, do not hit send, do not push post or whatever it is. And if you want more on how to respond powerfully to text messages, definitely check out my video on kick ass responses to narcissist texts for sure. All right. Ready? Number four. Number four sneaky things narcissists do in divorce is they use threats and intimidation tactics. They're going to say things they want to trigger you. They know how to trigger you. So they're going to say things like, "You're never going to see your kids again. I'm going to put you in jail. I'm going to accuse you of this. I'm going to make sure that you have no money and you're living on the streets." They know what your worst fears are, so they push on those. They want to trigger you. All right, just don't fall into that. I mean, most of the time when I was talking to clients on a regular basis, I would be spending a lot of my time dispelling myth. 95% of the time, their threats are just a bunch of crap. Just remember that. All right, number five. Line up flying monkeys. Oh, yes, especially the coverts. You know how they love them, some flying monkeys. Yes, they do. And they love to fly, get those flying monkeys to believe all of their lies and how great they are and how horrible you are and smear you. It's part of the whole smear campaign thing. And I do have a whole video on how to shut down a narcissist smear campaign. If you want to check that out, you can. Number six is they will use the court system as a sword, file all kinds of stuff, which leads me to number seven, which is they will file unnecessary motions. This is part of using the court system as the sword. They will just file all kinds of stuff to drive you absolutely insane and make sure you're spending lots of money and you're always on the defense and you feel like you're a turtle on your back with their foot on you, right? Number eight, they will use children as pawns. This is the one that's like super sad, and I'm sorry to hear all the time, and I'm sorry to see when it happens, because that's, the children are innocent victims in this, and they are not thinking about what's in the best interest of the children when they do that. So that's number eight. Number nine is that they will hide money and assets. A lot of times they've been doing that for a long time, even before the divorce started, or they will move things, or they'll put things in other people's names, or they will take cash and put it in different places, or they'll put cash with someone that they trust. Cash is hard to track down, but most of the time other monies are not as hard to track down. And a lot of times, by the way, there's not as much hidden money as you might think. You become so paranoid because they've done so much to you that you think that it's a lot worse than it is. So hopefully that makes you feel better. Next one is number 10. Number 10 is that they will ignore court orders. And again, this is where you're going to be saying, how are they getting away with this? And again, it's like, if they do that, let's say they're ordered to produce a document by a certain date according to the court. Or let me give you a different one. Let me say that they're supposed to pay child support on the first of the month, and now it's the second, third, fourth, or fifth of the month, and it hasn't been paid. You're sitting in your house going, how are they getting away with this? I want you to think that through, because the reason they got away with it so far at that point was because no one would know about it that needs to know about it, because the only person that needs to know about that is the judge. So when they ignore court orders, you need to file something to let the judge know that they ignored the court order. Whether it's a motion for contempt or a motion to compel or a show cause to, should they be held in contempt, something, whatever needs to be filed in your particular court. And sometimes there's different languaging in different courts, but if they do that, you just need to let the courts know. Don't let them get away with it. Even if you file whatever you need to file and the hearing doesn't get set for 3 months or whatever, don't let them get away with it. You have to stay on them. You are conditioning them on how to treat you. So that's number 10. You ready for number 11? This is the last one. And this is by no means a comprehensive list, by the way. I'm quite sure that all of you guys are going to say that there's lots more. And you can definitely go ahead and comment below other ones that you've seen too. All right, ready for number 11? Number 11 is stalking, threats of violence, actual violence. Just remember that everything that you do or say can be used against you and probably will be if you are dealing with a narcissist. Unfortunately, as I said, they're big, fat, hairy liars. I'll admit it, I'm that person. I'm the one the night before a birthday, an anniversary, or any kind of special occasion, I'm frantically searching the aisles for the right card and one that doesn't seem kind of corny or cringeworthy. You know the struggle, right? But then I found Moonpig. It's a total game changer. They have tons of adorable, funny, even heartfelt designs ready to go, and you can even personalize them, which is super cool. You can even upload your favorite photos or tweak the text to make it uniquely you, and they'll even suggest clever messages if you're feeling stuck. Oh, and no more forgetting birthdays or scrambling for addresses. Moonpig lets you save everything in one place and even sends you reminders. Plus, they've got the opportunity to upload gift cards from all your favorite places like Sephora or Starbucks, so you can really nail that perfect gift vibe. Once you've designed your card, they'll even mail it for you, or if you want to hand deliver it, they'll send it to you with a cool envelope. So guess what? This is your chance. Your first card is totally free. Just use the code FREE and go to moonpig.com/US/negotiate. Seriously, stop stressing and start impressing. Make someone's day with Moonpig. Try it right now. How to get leverage in your divorce. So, first of all, let's define what leverage is. Leverage is the thing that helps you gain advantage in negotiations. It creates incentive in the other side to settle or resolve the negotiations in a way that you want them to. So why do you want it? You want it because you want a fair settlement. You want it because you don't want your divorce to drag out. You want it because you want what's fair. You want what the law provides for you. You want this to go quickly. You don't want to spend thousands in attorney's fees. All really good reasons to have leverage and use it to your advantage. So for some, particularly women, not really sure why this is, or others who think that this is means game playing or being underhanded or manipulative in some way, you might think this is a difficult topic. You might say, I don't want to appear greedy. I don't want to fight. I just want to say what I want and then just resolve it all. I don't want to take too much. I don't want to play games. I've heard all of these kinds of things many times, and many other versions of something like that when it comes to this topic. But here's the thing. It comes down to psychology. People need to feel like they have gotten something, especially in a divorce negotiation. They want to feel that they've gotten something that you wanted, that you didn't get away with something over them. because your definition of fair may not be their definition of fair. It usually isn't. So, and you want to know another little dirty little divorce secret? Being the nice one in the divorce rarely gets you what you want. That's the bottom line. So, how do you get leverage? Number one, first you have to know the value of what you have that the other side might want. Number two, do your research. Figure out the value if you need to. Figure out what the other side may argue. Be prepared to meet that argument with sound reasoning based in fact and research. Number three, figure out what's incentivizing the other side. Is it money? Is it the kids? Is it pride? Is it not being embarrassed? Is it humiliation? Is it, what is it that's incentivizing the other side? Because that's the key to your leverage. Don't give away your leverage too early in the game. Again, a bigger problem that I see with women, not always, sometimes men make this mistake too, but make sure you save your leverage for when you're going to need it, which is further down in the negotiation process after you've done your research, after you've figured out what it is that incentivizes the other side and you're prepared.
So narcissistic personality disorder is a personality disorder that affects so many people, and it's a stealth kind of personality disorder that most people don't even understand or see until the evil part of it arrives. These people that have this have no sense of value of other people. They really don't hold anything of value to anybody. They are abusive, and they don't start out that way. They start out extremely charming. They start out where they are sudden soulmates with someone, and most of the time while they're in a relationship, their neighbors, their friends, their coworkers will never see the signs that they are being abusive at home.
Now, Tracy, I know you mentioned on your website and in your podcast that you yourself are a survivor of several relationships with narcissists. And this is what's led you to be so passionate about educating people on the topic. Would you mind sharing a little bit of your personal story? Because I think it will sound familiar to many of our listeners.
Sure. I did not know what narcissistic personality disorder was, or that there were people out there that were this crazy. And yet, when I learned about it because I had been in a marriage, and my divorce was just like the things that kept getting thrown at me, the lies, and now I know them as gaslighting, the things that were coming at me, I didn't understand them at all. So I had just gone through this horrific divorce without a label, without understanding, just really confused as to what the heck happened. And I went into a rather quick relationship after that. I was swooped up by another narcissist, only this one was the reason I came to learn all about this. He had me arrested falsely, which is something that happens a lot with victims, because a narcissist will revert to anything that will kind of take you out of the way, get you out of their hair, and without any care or concern for anyone. So once I started to learn about that, for him, people said, look up gaslighting, he's gaslighting you. I looked it up, and it explained my whole divorce. It explained my mother-in-law, my sister's, my own mother. So there was a reason I didn't see this type of behavior. It was because I grew up with people that would ghost me. And I was used to my sisters just disappearing off the face of the earth for no reason at all. And so when I was in a relationship, that just was like, oh, that's not how normal people are in a relationship. So learning about it and trying to understand it, it put me into this seems like it's a calling for me to stand on the soapbox and never stop talking about it, never stop learning, and never stop teaching about it.
Well, first of all, I just want to congratulate you for not continuing to be in that victim mentality, to see this as a calling, to see this as an opportunity. That's what we really want our entire show to be about, that the divorce and the bad things that happen as a result of divorce are actually opportunities for growth and change. So I'm really, I'm impressed that's what you see it as, and as a result have obviously helped many people. So I want to ask you about the warning signs of narcissists and how you can spot them. But if you could, just before you get to that, just give a little bit of a definition on gaslighting, because I don't know that everyone knows exactly what that is. And you did mention that term. So if you could just give a definition of gaslighting, and then go into what the red flags are for narcissists.
Sure. Gaslighting is a way that they try to manipulate the victim to think they're crazy. That means they're telling you stories that simply didn't happen and insisting that you're the crazy one, that you don't remember it happening that specific way. So it challenges your mind to really dig deep and question, did that happen? And over time, they slowly wear you down to the point where you are questioning yourself. And most survivors that I talk to just sit there with this dumbfounded look on their faces going, I know that didn't happen. And yet he's convinced me, or she's convinced me over and over. And finally they give up. There's no hope for them, and they just give up the reality that they thought was real, and they've lost themselves. So it feels really icky, if you would say. It feels that you have no control over what's going to happen. And of course you're walking on eggshells during that, because if you say, no, that's not how I remember it, you'll generally be met with anger. You'll be met with the conflict of the story, and they're telling you, no, this isn't how it is, and you're crazy. How could you believe that? How could you don't you remember? And it's that kind of wearing down of a person that is their intention. There's a great movie from the 1940s called Gaslighting, and if you haven't seen it, it's really creepy with the old music that they used to play in the background. But the man would actually hide things on his wife and then ask her where her pearl necklace was. And when she would go look for it, she'd be like, oh no, he's going to get so mad at me that I've lost it. But he was manufacturing this lie, manufacturing her to think that she was crazy. And that's what gaslighting is.
Can I ask, do the narcissists, the people doing the crazy making, coming up with this alternate version of what happened, do they know they're doing it? Is it is this a plan on their part? I know in that movie, I've seen that movie, and it is fascinating, but that was a very well thought out, plan to make that person think they were going crazy. Do narcissists know what they're doing?
I believe they do, yes, because they're creating this alternate reality. And do they know that they're doing it to mess with your mind? That's to be debated. Do they stick to a story that they believe is true and just push that on? Yes, they do. So I believe that they are doing it intentionally, and there's a maliciousness to it. It's about taking away someone's power. And gaslighting, as all abuse is control. So once they know that they can control you by convincing you of something that didn't happen, then they can control you about every other thing in their life and in your life. So it's a step ladder, if you would, to further and further abuse. If they are not able to mind control you, because that's what gaslighting is, if they're not able to do that, you probably will not be in the relationship very long, because they're looking for someone that they can control. So as soon as you see this reality, which generally happens at the end, at the discard, there's 3 stages of abuse. So it's idealization, and then it's devalue, and after that comes the discard. And most people don't see this kind of behavior until they're out of it, or on the other side looking in going, oh, that's what that was. And so I do believe that they know it and they see it, because it's just, okay, if I can check that box that I got that person to accept this story that I told them, they've got one more step on the control ladder for you.
So back to, I think, Rebecca's question there then. So when someone's getting into a relationship or is in a relationship that's tortured, what are the warning signs or red flags?
Well, there's hundreds of them. There's behavior red flags. There's action red flags. At the beginning, they're certainly different, because the charm that these people have is what captivates everyone. Nobody goes into a relationship going, I want to be with the devil. They just don't. They come into it because the person is everything they've ever dreamed of. And that's part of the red flag kind of abusive behavior, where seems so natural to be sharing your story with the new person in your life, to share every detail that's happened to you before. But what they're doing is they're actually making a list of everything that has happened to you, knowing that they can also get away with it because you didn't see it. So when you're going into a relationship, it's important to know that anyone who rushes intimacy, rushes that relationship. I've heard people get married in 2 months, and it was so whirlwind and it was so amazing. And yet the second they got married, like, the person completely changed. So it's in that stage. If they're not patient with you and not willing to give you the time, that's a sign that they're trying to rush you to confuse you. By rushing someone into something and making them feel so wonderful, on a normal spectrum, that would be a great thing. But on an abusive schedule, that's where they're really just figuring out how to abuse you. And you'll start to see holes in the story. So lies are like gaslighting, lies that just don't make sense. And if they've told you one thing and yet the reality is something else, that's a huge red flag for someone to look at in a relationship. And if they start to isolate you, it's so stealth. You don't really think, oh gosh, he's cutting off my family. But slowly but surely, they pluck off your friends, and they go for the weak ones first. When they meet your friends and your family, they're interviewing them too. How is your alliance? How strong are they going to defend and stick up for you? If your family or your friends say, well, she's a very good storyteller, they're going to use that against you later. So they're gathering intel from your friends. And then if your friends and family can be coerced later into becoming what we call flying monkeys, which is kind of like the witch and the Wizard of Oz used the monkeys to do her bidding. That's what flying monkeys are in a narcissistic kind of relationship. But as you're dating and you're interviewing this person, red flags to look for is are there a lot of crazy people in their life? Is their ex a crazy ex? Are they an alcoholic, drug addict? There's a whole list of things that they will, instantly attach to their ex. That's not normal. If everyone in their past is crazy, probably why would they be there? There's something you have to look at. If they experience and display anger towards you for questioning them, they don't like to be questioned. And of course, in the beginning, you're not necessarily questioning, you're believing that love story. You're not going, well, that doesn't make sense. But if you start to question those things, then, and they get angry, that's definitely a sign that you have to watch out for. And if you feel like any single fight could end a relationship, then that's not a good feeling either. That's not something that you should be thinking is a good, healthy relationship.
And now let's talk about what happens when a narcissist knows that you know. And I personally have had to deal with a couple of narcissists in my own life, and that's why I have this passion. Yes, I developed skills on how to negotiate at a mastery level by being an attorney, and at a mastery level by being an attorney in
high conflict situations, because I've represented people in high net worth and high conflict divorce cases for over 20 years. But when I really learned about narcissism and how to apply narcissism to the process of negotiation was when I actually had to deal with a couple of narcissists in my own life. They're horrible. They mess with your brain. They create new neuronal patterns that make it really, really hard for you to go on with your life and feel whole. But I promise you that you are whole. I promise you that you will be able to get out of this. It happened to me, and if it happened to me, it can happen to anyone. And if I can get out of it, you can get out of it, and I will show you the way step by step, and that's what I do for you here. So what I found when the narcissist, that I had to deal with knew that I knew is that they would start love bombing again. That's one of the things that they start to do. So they got you into their web in the first place by love bombing you, by promising that they would do things, by, making you think that they're so wonderful and so perfect. So they try to remind you of this false person that you thought that they were. But they start doing little things for you again, and you start to go, well, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're not as bad as I thought that they were. And I just want to remind you of what that does to your brain. There was a study done by a psychologist out of Stanford, and his name was Robert Sapolsky, and he did a study on monkeys and their brains and what would happen if they got rewarded for good things that they did. And what he found was when the monkeys were rewarded every single time for good things, nothing happened in their brains at all. But when they were rewarded intermittently, variably, where they had no idea when they were going to be rewarded, then the dopamine levels in their brains actually rose to the level of when people's brains are on cocaine. Like, it's such a high, it felt so good to them. And so they were scrambling constantly, even more so than any other time, trying to hustle for getting those treats and getting that dopamine level release. And so that's what happens to us when we're dealing with narcissists, because they do this love bomb, devalue, discard thing, and it's back and forth. They can be love bombing you while they're discarding you, love bombing while they're devaluing you, and it's all happening sort of at once. Kind of starts with love bombing, ends with discard, but this toxic stew in between. If you want to know more about the 3 stages of a narcissistic relationship, make sure you check out my videos on love bombing, devaluing, and discarding so that you can understand each one of the stages a little bit more. But basically, that's what they do to your brain. So you find yourself like drawn back in when they know that there they go with the love bombing again. And you sit there and you go, well, you know what? It's not terrible all the time. Sometimes it can be really good. And that's how you end up sticking in this and staying in this for a lot longer than you probably feel like you should have. But don't beat yourself up over it, because they are master manipulators. That's what they do. They're usually very charming and very skilled at getting you into their little web of control. They're usually very, very charismatic people and very skilled at doing that. So that's one of the first things that they do when they know that you know. And by the way, if you think that this is all so sick, give me a so sick in the comments. The next thing that narcissists will try to do when they know that you know is they'll start to try to get in with people around you. So they'll start to triangulate and line up their flying monkeys. So, in my experience, what I had is that these particular narcissists would try to get super close to other people in my family and do really lovely, wonderful things for them, so that everybody else in the world thinks that these people are so wonderful, and that way it empowers them to be able to turn around and say to you, you're the only one that thinks that they're there's something wrong with me. You're the only one that thinks that there's a problem. No one else thinks that. Everybody else thinks that I'm wonderful. And if you want to know more about narcissists' favorite sayings, check out my video on narcissists' favorite sayings. But those are some of the things that they do. They start doing all kinds of wonderful things to look good and line up those flying monkeys so that if there's a discard coming, you're going to be alone. You're going to feel alone. You're going to feel like it's you against the world. So the next thing that happens is the birth of the smear campaign. This is when you start to see them kind of starting to badmouth you. It's part of the whole flying monkeys thing where they are triangulating and lining up people against you. Especially the covert narcissists are really good at this. They start saying things in ways like, oh, I don't know why she just doesn't, like me, or she, or he's done these things to me. They kind of try to present themselves as a victim, like you're the one who is the cheater. You're the one who's the addict. You're abusing alcohol. Who maybe is treating them badly in some way. They try to. It's a smear campaign, but they don't go straight out and say that person is awful. They're really, really good at presenting it in a way that you are the one that's been wronging them and targeting them. And they might even say things that you've been doing that they've been doing to you, like cheating or not paying attention to them or whatever it is that you have an issue with. That's when they'll start to say those things to other people and line up people. The best flying monkeys for them are the ones that are people that they think that you really love or trust, or that you think that you have a relationship with, or that you think that you are close to. Because if they can get one of those flying monkeys, this is one of the things that happened to me, is one of the narcissists in my life was actually able to get one of the flying monkeys to come to me and say, why don't you give this person another chance, and all this stuff. And they don't know any of the story. They don't know any of what happened. And, but they're just living in this fantasy world that, you did something wrong. And so what can you do about it? In my experience, going back to those flying monkeys and trying to change them and trying to now turn them against the other person, it really doesn't necessarily work. And then you just spend all your time worrying about it. And so in my experience, the best thing to do is just to put strict boundaries into place. Do not continue to give them any sort of narcissistic supply. As for the smear campaigns, as for the flying monkeys, you just have to learn to just go, I can't fight every single battle. I can only be who I am. I can only be the best that I can. And I have to hope that karma will show itself, or I will show myself to the world as who I really actually am, and be okay with that. And as for the love bombing, do not fall for it. Just understand that that's their manipulation tactic. That's what they use in order to gain control over you again. So when the narcissist knows that it's not necessarily going to be a pretty sight. Narcissists always get worse before they get better. And when that cover comes off, when that mask comes off, and they realize that you know who they are, they're not going to really want to have much to do with you anymore, unless they can feel like they can get narcissistic supply out of you in the form of intimidating you or manipulating you in some way. The reason why they're still hanging around, if you've got a court case that's going on for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, I just talked to somebody 6 years, is because they're still getting narcissistic supply out of it. That's all they want. And if they're getting something out of it, some feeling of high, because they are able to intimidate you and make your life miserable, they're going to continue to hang around. So the key in creating leverage and negotiating with them is going to be in that narcissistic supply.